Hello, and welcome to the Biochar Show, where innovation meets sustainability. I'm your host, Megan K. Lees, and today we're diving deep into the transformative power of biochar with someone who's been at the forefront of this revolution for decades. My guest today is Don Harfield, the CEO of Charterra, a company dedicated to providing biochar and consulting services to the agricultural and bioenergy communities in Western Canada. With over 40 years of experience as a professional engineer, executive, and researcher, Don has made incredible contributions to industries ranging from waste management to oil and gas production and even the pulp and paper sector. As the technical lead for the Alberta Biochar Initiative, Don oversaw the development of 2 demonstration-scale portable biochar production units, showcasing his ability to turn vision into action. Through his company, Charterra, he continues to champion environmentally and economically sustainable projects, including collaborations with First Nations and Métis organizations. Don's expertise isn't just in biochar, it's in creating meaningful impact, whether it's through enhancing soil health, advancing bioenergy solutions, or working toward a more sustainable future. I'm thrilled to have him on the show and share his journey, insights, and the exciting possibilities of biochar. Hello, Don. Welcome.
Megan, it's great to be on the Biochar Show and have this conversation. Thank you.
Why don't you tell us a little bit about your journey, like what led you to work in biochar and ultimately become the CEO of your company, Charterra?
In a word, curiosity. My father was an aircraft mechanic in World War II, stationed in England, and he inspired me to understand how things work. After my engineering degree, I spent 20 years in the Alberta oil patch, and then 9 years in pulp and paper at 2 pulp mills in Manitoba, Saskatchewan. I returned to Alberta in 2005 to help our family when my sister became terminal with cancer. I then spent 14 years in research with the Alberta government in Vegreville. And I led a waste management research team, which converted forestry, industrial, and municipal waste to energy and useful products like biochar. And Charterra specializes in converting woody waste biochar and getting the char back into the earth, hence the name Charterra.
And is it so because Vegreville is roughly 5,000 people? Is that sort of population?
It is. It's a town of about 5,500 people, 1 hour east of the capital of Alberta, which is Edmonton. So we are just an hour, a stone's throw away from the capital.
And so would you say with, 40 years of experience across multiple industries, how did your background in waste management and the oil and gas influence your approach to biochar?
Well, simply put, my approach to biochar is to help bring bioenergy to remote communities. The transformation of wood residues from the forest and municipalities into soil enhancement products like biochar cooperates with nature. And biochar basically converts the carbon dioxide in the atmosphere through the growing of trees, and it converts it into biochar that, when added to the soil, helps our crops, our gardens, and helps the forest grow. And in summary, biochar sequesters carbon and helps enhance our soils.
And so when did you first learn about biochar?
That would have been through my research that I did with the Alberta government. And at Alberta Innovates, we partnered with Lakeland College in Vermilion, and we formed the Alberta Biochar Initiative to investigate and promote biochar.
And how did it come to life? Like, what were some key takeaways leading to it?
Well, by establishing the Alberta Biochar Initiative, it was similar to what the U.S. is doing with the U.S. Biochar Initiative and the International Biochar Initiative. But in Alberta, we established this organization as a partnership between Lakeland College and Alberta Innovates. And our membership grew rapidly, and we designed and operated 2 demonstration-scale biochar production units. One was a retort auger, which is a type of screw within a pipe, and the other one was an updraft gasifier, which is a multi-layer vessel which allows the volatiles to exit from the top and the biochar to go at the bottom. And the biochar we produced was used as a growing media in greenhouse trials in Alberta and British Columbia. We learned that biochar is a great soil medium and a great soil amendment, but it needs to be conditioned with nutrients first. And working in collaboration with the U.S. Biochar Initiative and the International Biochar Initiative, we had the opportunity to expand our research and quickly grow the membership.
And so is there, like, what you're talking about, a membership? Is that like a part, like, maybe explain what the membership is, just out of curiosity?
Wonderful. Well, the membership was a network of other experts and end users that could expand the utilization of biochar into the regenerative agricultural community in North America. The membership in Alberta grew to about 75 people during the 4.5 years that we were operating as a organization.
Wow. Okay. How long?
We had quarterly meetings. We had sharing of research and trials, case studies, and it was a wonderful learning opportunity for all of us.
And so when the biochar, where do you get the I guess the means to make the biochar? Is that just in Alberta, or is that all of Canada or Western Canada?
Good question. The biochar was produced from wood chips or pulp mill sludge or other biomass that we had available from our farming community, from the forest industry. We had the wood chips that were often used for making pulp. We converted that to biochar. And so we had no shortage of the feedstock, and the different biochars that we made, we categorized and we used in trials and case studies, and it was a great learning experience. So we became quite familiar with biochar and its benefits.
That's fascinating. How does, I guess in your experience, what are the most significant benefits in biochar in agricultural and, I guess, bioenergy as well?
Well, the most significant benefits are enhancing soils for the agricultural community, and when combined with manures and compost, it helps rebuild soils. It's drought resistant. The biochar also reduces odors when you are composting it or you are managing the manure. We found that when people have municipal composting facilities, such as in Edmonton, the biochar could be added to that to be able to reduce the odors that come from their facilities.
Oh, wow.
And biochar is also a product of bioenergy, so that when you're producing biochar, you can actually produce electricity through what we call pyrolysis. And pyrolysis is a thermal or heat treating process in the absence of oxygen, which when you convert the wood to biochar, the energy, the heat that's generated from that can be used to produce electricity through either a steam cycle or an organic Rankine cycle. And an organic Rankine cycle is just another way of using a thermal fluid instead of steam to generate electricity. So it's a wonderful little system, and it operates at roughly about 550 to 600 degrees Celsius, which is a little bit more than your stove in your house.
And where is the biochar made in Alberta?
Okay. Well, right now, there are no production facilities in Alberta.
Oh.
But it's being produced in Saskatchewan. It's being produced in Ontario and Quebec. It's being produced down in the U.S., down in Oregon, Colorado. And so actually, Charterra is looking at helping a community build the first bioenergy facility to produce biochar in Alberta.
Wow. And where are they thinking about building it?
Oh, well, that's
that's everyone's guess.
Well, no, actually, that's a project that we're working on right now in the Slave Lake area. And we hope with an Indigenous community, we may, in fact, be able to bring that to occur.
And so I was about to ask, is that how Charterra collaborates with the First Nations and Métis organizations? That's what you're speaking on?
Yes. So if we look at how you convert forestry biomass or your municipal wood waste to biochar, it's really a sustainable and responsible use of wood waste. And Indigenous communities that are outside of our major cities, they can greatly benefit from the power generated from bioenergy, and they can gain local employment. It helps sustain their communities and be in harmony with nature, which is one of their very important aspects of their culture. The soil amendment products can be produced and sold for land reclamation, growing of crops, and greenhouses. So it can be hugely beneficial to communities outside of the major cities, and it can be highly beneficial to Indigenous communities.
How do you see biochar's role evolving in tackling climate change over the next decade?
Well,
tricky question.
Well, a very important question, because right now our polar ice caps are melting and we have news of flooding in coastal areas. And right now all over the news are the fires in California, particularly in Los Angeles that are threatening communities. And Charterra works with communities that are seeking sustainable bioenergy to reduce their reliance on fossil fuels, which are a contributor to global warming. We don't want to eliminate the fossil fuels, but we think that there's an opportunity for reducing the fossil fuels and relying on some of the waste biomass that's available. And the bioenergy is carbon negative. When the biochar is placed in the soil, the electricity is put onto the grid. Especially true when northern communities often rely on propane and diesel for their electricity and their heating needs. So this can have a huge impact on northern communities.
That's fantastic. And I guess, speaking of the future, what would be your vision for Charterra and its expansion and impact on, I mean, not even just Western Canada, but possibly like going further into North America?
Well, another very good question. And Charterra embraces the adoption of bioenergy and biochar as a means of tackling man-made climate change. We're contributing to the development of training courses for 11 universities across Canada, including the University of Alberta, to promote regenerative agriculture and the use of biochar in soils. And regenerative agriculture is farming which improves soil, and biochar is a major contributor to regenerating soils. These training modules that we develop over the next 5 years will equip students and will train leaders in government and industry to help make our world more sustainable.
Which is what we want, especially, I know, well, as you know, but I lived in LA for 12 years. So all the fires there, and it's sort of just interesting, how the whole point of this podcast is to learn about biochar, but it's also to learn about sustainability within the earth, because like you said, the polar ice caps are melting and everything seems to be changing as far as environmental weather and everything right now, global warming and such. So I think having people like myself learn more about your industry and what exactly this is really important. And I think it's great that it's going to go to universities and stuff. Like after like decades of work in sort of this industry, what keeps you passionate about continuing the biochar movement and its potential in the earth?
Well, gain curiosity, never lose the curiosity. But my wife and I have 3 children and 4 grandchildren, and we see hope for the future as our next generation seeks to make this a better world to live in. I wish to encourage the wise use of technology to address these environmental and social issues. I want to foster curiosity, pass on our knowledge to help guide them in an exciting future. And after 40 years in the energy, the forest industry, and research sectors, I hope that I can contribute to their future in a meaningful way. So it's all giving back, giving forward, and helping others.
And do you think, sort of a question just off the top of my head, but as far as like agricultural, is this more, whether obviously we're both from Alberta and so much agriculture, so much farming, and, because we have so much of that in Alberta, is there more, would you say like biochar is more, I guess, abundant in places like Alberta where we have forestry and such, or in pulp and paper, or do you think this is just you can get biochar or make it anywhere?
Well, Alberta is really a showcase of communities which are adjacent to the forest, also in the agricultural areas of the province. So you can take the forest residues and you can convert that into biochar. You can use that as a soil amendment in the farming communities. You can amend the compost that are generated by municipal composting facilities. You can use the manure that comes from cattle feedlots, and you can blend that with biochar. You can put that back into land reclamation. You can put that into so many ways of getting it back into the ground, and you can sequester the carbon that's in our atmosphere by utilizing the vibrant forest that we have and using the residues to create the biochar. And it's a full cycle of how the forestry, the agriculture, and municipal communities can all work together.
And what about things like, well, for instance, in Alberta, and speaking of California fires, Jasper, one of our beloved places, was on fire, I guess a year ago. And I was thinking, I was seeing, sort of a year later or whenever it happened, not quite a year, but with all the sort of, I guess, remnants of the trees, would those make substantial biochar? Like if we were to kind of forest them, or is that not really part of that?
Absolutely. And a company in Colorado by the name of Biochar now is using the forest beetle killed trees and trees damaged by fire. And they are converting that into biochar in Colorado. And I think there's huge lessons we can learn from them and apply in Alberta as well.
Wow, that's fascinating. I'll have to look into that. What other takeaways for people that know about biochar, for people that maybe don't, like what's your sort of takeaway on this whole industry? As I'm obviously learning a lot about it, what do you think are some good, I guess, tidbits for those wanting to learn more about it, or how they can help, or like you said, going into universities and such? What would be your sort of, you said, with your kids and grandkids, a sustainable future, what would be something that I guess myself, like, is there something like the average person like myself, like we can do, or just keep spreading the word that carbon is good, it's going back in and creating things like positive for us?
Well, again, another very good question. And, people want to learn about how biochar can be a help to our communities. There are many case studies that have been documented around the world, and this information can be easily accessed through internet searches. And one of my favorites is Biochar Today.
Nice.
Others are the U.S. Biochar Initiative, USBI, the International Biochar Initiative, IBI, and Google Scholar. And we think that that it's really important that the regulatory requirements that people go through as producers, this is really important. And in fact, Charterra, through its predecessor company, AirTerra, was responsible for gaining CFIA approval. Now, Canadian Food Inspection Agency approval required for the adoption of anything going into our soils. And they approved the adoption of biochar in Canada. And now companies can produce biochar through getting certification through industry organizations such as OMRI or CSI to bring biochar to market. And since biochar is established as a greenhouse growth media and soil amendment, I think we can expect to see more biochar-based soil amendment products coming out this spring to our garden centers. I really hope.
Okay, good. I was just going to ask, because I've seen, some like, is this something, I know in the States, I've seen it at Home Depot. So is this something coming into Canada that, like myself, I can just walk into a Home Depot and buy a bag of biochar? Is that how it works, or hopefully going to work?
There's another very big company in North America, Grow, and they're beginning to utilize biochar into some of their amendment products, and that's going to be available in U.S. and in Canada. Sungrow is a pretty big company. I hope that I've inspired you a little bit to ask some questions, and for your listeners to be able to be even more curious, and that maybe there's an opportunity for me to be back on your show again for other questions that come to your mind that you'd like to ask.
That would be fantastic. I think because the show progresses and even like myself, I keep learning. And then, of course, your brain, as you know, keeps going. And then you have all these other questions that you want to ask that you didn't realized, really, I never thought of that. I should have asked that. But I think to get, the whole point of this show is so we can have new listeners and take away from what biochar is and how it is helping our earth and, catastrophic events like Los Angeles and, which is obviously heartbreaking for me because I lived there for 12 years and just quickly how things can be destructive, but how quickly we can help advance in the earth and just do simple things like what we think is, it's like even you were saying like manure and things like that. And I read somewhere how certain places are putting biochar in chicken feed because it's all kind of going back. And at first I went, oh my gosh, that's insane. But I guess now when you start learning more about it, it kind of, I guess that's the way the earth works too. We want to we take from it and then we want to put back in, especially like reforesting and stuff after forest fires and such. What's one of your, maybe not favorite, but what's something that you love about biochar that's, maybe you could share with listeners?
Well, I've used it in my garden and I've done trials and studies in my own backyard. I've even done a little bit of science behind it. And so I'm really quite fascinated by how biochar enhances the soil carbon content, increases the the soil. It's wonderful to work with. It's wonderful to see how it can improve your soils. And I applaud your interest in biochar. And I just hope that this biochar show can inspire your listeners and promote more ideas about biochar today.
I hope so too. That's the whole takeaway of this, and even further guests that I'll interview and learn more about their biochar, which goes as far as like Namibia. And I think this is something, I think it's so important, especially the way the world is sort of going at the moment, that it's nice to be able to put back into Mother Nature what we take away. And I thank you so much for taking the time and being a good sport and playing along and giving some information to people like myself that have a totally different background in sciences, but still learning and hopefully sharing this experience with other people. And you never know like where this leads. Like you said, there's big companies in the States and then there's other companies around the world, and this could really change a lot of things. And I think, like you said, you've experimented in your garden, and I think people understand it's not, because I think people look at it and think, oh, is it charcoal? And I'm like, no, it's something different. And then they have to kind of explain what it is. So I think that's really good.
I guess in 2 words, biochar is healthy charcoal. It's come from healthy wood. It's come from trees. You don't have any toxic materials in there. It's healthy for the soil, but it does need to be conditioned before you start growing plants in it. And the best way to be able to inoculate the biochar is through adding of compost or manures. I think this is a wonderful segue to future conversations. So, Megan, thank you so much for your time today. I look forward to other opportunities. I can be back on your show and we can talk some more.
Yeah, well, I'll be picking your brain some more. Don't worry. Okay, well, thank you so much for being a part of this and for taking time out of your day to help gain a little knowledge for myself and for the rest of the community that's going to start listening to this and gain a little insight on what exactly biochar is and how we can promote it and help, I guess, make the world a better place, one biochar at a time.
My pleasure. Thank you so much, Megan.
Thank you very much. We'll talk with you soon.